Let's now bring in Dr Khwezi Mabasa, a part-time sociology lecturer at the University of Pretoria, as well as economic and social policy lead at Friedrich Ebert Stiftung, South Africa, joining us now via video link to unpack the latest political developments, including the ANC's latest talks on the Government of National Unity. Dr Mabasa, very good afternoon to you. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to SA Today.
Afternoon, sir, and afternoon to the viewers as well.
Now, just considering the fact that the ANC has been hard at work engaging its GNU partners, do you think that the party is leading from a position of strength or compromise in these negotiations? I mean, what does this move tell us about the ANC's current political position post-election?
Yeah, well, I think it is in the sense that, firstly, if you look at the composition of cabinet, the ANC is largely represented there. But secondly, also the frameworks that are being used in the GNU in terms of the key policy frameworks, they are also aligned to the frameworks that you find in the ANC's policy documents. Yeah. And then it's about negotiating the particular details of those policy frameworks with the different partners. So I think from that perspective, yes, it is moving from a position of strength. Mm-hmm. However, as we know, there are criticisms around some governance shortcomings in certain areas, which the ANC has acknowledged, and also the systemic inequalities that still persist within the economy.
And how might the internal factions within the African National Congress affect the GNU negotiations and outcomes?
Yeah, well, the issue with the discussion about the internal factions is that they're mostly based on just media reports, informal reports. But when it comes to the ANC's formal organizational position on the GNU, to me, it's quite clear. So I think although, yes, factions do exist, but I'm not sure that they have a material impact right now on the policy framing of the GNU. And the reason why I'm highlighting policy is that we've often focused on just the political brinkmanship and contestations within the GNU, within particular positions in government. But what we've neglected is the policy issues. And I think we need to transition to focus on the policy issues, because that's when we can see what are the differences, the points of divergence, but also where can parties possibly find each other. And this would be the same because in other countries that have coalitions, actually the policy issues are at the center of the discussions on the coalitions of the governments of national unity. And I think we have to develop a political culture in South Africa that focuses on these issues and finding ways to address them.
Let's talk about some of the risks, Dr. Mabasa. If the GNU talks, for argument's sake, collapse or even lead to weak coalitions, is there a scenario perhaps where the ANC could end up in opposition if negotiations fail?
Well, from where I'm standing, I don't think so, because besides some of the statements that have been issued by the Democratic Alliance, on some of the major policy issues, it seems like some of the parties who are within the GNU agree with the ANC's framing and the policy propositions that they have. But that does not mean that there are no policy contestations. And I think what often happens is that when there's a disagreement on a policy issue, everyone assumes that the GNU will collapse. And this is quite alarmist in my view, because this is the nature of coalitions. I mean, let's look, for example, at Germany right now. Yeah. They've been discussing their coalition, going through several policy options, and it hasn't necessarily led to collapse. So I think what we have to do in South Africa, we have to accept that as part of developing a political culture around coalitions, we will have policy contestations, but we must focus on evidence to drive the discussions on those contestations. Yes. So that we don't make policy decisions that are not aligned with lived experiences, but that are not informed by clear data and evidence. And I think we should develop that political culture and approach this moment in that way. Yeah.
Yeah, just taking into cognizance that particular approach that you've just alluded to, will a government of national unity then have the ability to sort of implement meaningful policy reforms, or will it be bogged down by compromise?
Well, if we look at the statement of intent and some of the key principles that have been outlined in the statement of intent that inform the GNU, you can see that the government has made some headway around, for example, dealing with some of the regulatory issues and the challenges in relation to the functioning of the economy. The president alluded to this in the State of Nation address, and the Minister of Finance as well. There's been issues around improving state capacity and even not in terms of just the technical capacity, but hiring more frontline personnel. Recently, the Minister of Health made pronouncements on that around the hiring of nurses and filling vacant posts of doctors. So I think there has been movement on some of the key areas of the statement of intent. However, there still needs to be a clear process to determine how to resolve some of the conflict or the conflictual issues. Your NHI, the debates around land reform, and other policy areas that are still subject to contestation. Yes.
Now, President Ramaphosa visited the Eastern Cape provincial government, and earlier on we had a conversation with Premier Oscar Mabuyane to talk about some of the deliverables. So how does this engagement then align with President Ramaphosa's strategy of strengthening intergovernmental relations?
Yeah, so President Ramaphosa's strategy is informed by the MTDP, the National Development Plan, and one of the key principles there is the notion of building a developmental state. Yes. And one of the key features of a developmental state, it's its ability to strengthen coordination amongst different bureaucratic institutions within government. And I think this visit is important because we need that coordination between sort of the national level and the provincial level as well, and especially that a coordination that is led by the highest office in the country. But more importantly, that coordination also brings the intersection between provincial and national issues. So you heard in the insert, for example, there was the premier highlighted the issue of the tariffs and the issue related to trade debates, which we know is an intersecting provincial and national issue. And the third thing is that the visit also promotes oversight, right? Because there are different mechanisms of accountability. They exist, yes, at the individual level, but also at the institutional level. So the presidency has to exercise that oversight, particularly because the presidency is also responsible for monitoring and evaluation to some extent. So I think this is something that we need to welcome as South Africans, and the fact that it's at the intersection of this relationship between governance and socio-economic development in the province.
Dr. Mabasa, great chatting to you. Thank you so much for your reflections.
Thank you much. Thank you very much, sir.
That is Dr. Khwezi Mabasa. He is a part-time sociology lecturer at the University of Pretoria, just sharing with us his thoughts on, the ANC's, the President Ramaphosa's oversight visit to the Eastern Cape provincial government, and as well as the ANC's negotiations with the GNU partners.